Okay, welcome in, everybody. It is Monday. It is time for Full Court Press. Momentarily, Brian Power will be making his return to the show. Vino's got the day off. He had I think a little operation on his knee, and so we're just giving him the morning to recover. But he'll still be putting out plays. I think we will have him back and ready to go tomorrow. So in the meantime, we're going to do a Monday show. We've got BP coming in, and while he is switching over, because I believe he just finished his other show, we'll get the promotional stuff out of the way first. Double the CBB firepower, 3-day package, myself and Rob Vino. I know for me, I didn't have the best weekend, but I did manage to go 2-1 yesterday. I've had a very strong start to February, all things considered. And so that is up. I haven't checked to see how Rob did this weekend, but I do know that pretty much going into the week last week, he's been one of the top basketball handicappers on the website. So check that out. Double the firepower, CBB. It's 3 days of all access. Myself and Rob Vino. You get all the college hoop plays for 3 days. While we're waiting for people to file in and BP is going to hop on, I will start so we'll do a little double feature today. We're going to talk Duke, Syracuse, and then we're going to talk Iowa State, Kansas, and then we'll just hit whatever you guys want to hit in the chat. I was at Cameron Indoor Stadium over the weekend, and just bear with me for a second here. I am resending the link to BP. So sorry for the technical difficulties this morning, but we are going to be up and running in just a second. And I was at Cameron Indoor this weekend. It was actually my third time in the building. My sister went to Duke way back. So this would have probably been like 2010, 2011. I actually got to go as a student a couple of times. So got an ID from someone that wasn't going to the game and played the role of a student a couple of times at Cameron, which is it was a phenomenal experience. As I bring Brian Power in, BP, I was telling people, I think I've told you this a couple times. My sister went to Duke back in 2010, 2011. I got to what we used to do. So she went as a grad student, and there's different ticketing for undergrad and grad students. And it's actually a lot easier to get a ticket as a student if you're a graduate student, because by the time people are there for grad school, they're probably trying to get jobs and they're less focused on going to every basketball game. So over the weekend, I made my return to Cameron Indoor Stadium for the Duke Clemson game. And it's one of those things where you could probably go once, you could probably go 10 times, 20. It's like, it never wears off. It's still just as awesome as the first time you went. And so that was, it was very cool this weekend. I did a show with Kelly Stewart live. We actually made it happen. The internet, the Wi-Fi is way better in there than it was 15 years ago. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, we're back from North Carolina, and we're going to start with this game. So before we get started, though, BP, first of all, welcome back to Full Court Press. Folks thought we kicked you off. Why don't you tell people what you've been doing? Tell people what you've been up to.
Well, what I've been doing is actually what I literally just finished up. Morning Wager, available both here on the WagerTalk and Picks and Parlays YouTube channels. Make sure you subscribe to both of those, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Mark Zeno and I have been seeing the board well on that show, having a lot of good times doing that. Wish I could be making my return under better circumstances. I know Rob, first of all, I hope everything's good with Rob. And number two, kind of sucks that I had a big loss yesterday with Murray State, my 5% play. Really loved that play. It was really looking good for 22 minutes. We're up 19. Let me tell you something. Yeah. I was going off about this, Trig, on the morning wager. When you're up 19 with 18 minutes left in the game and you just need your team to win, you're feeling pretty damn good. And I never feel good about a play until, the very end. To lose that, even if they just lost outright, would be really bad. To lose by 17 is borderline insanity. They were outscored 61-25 the last 18 minutes of that game. I have never seen anything like that in almost 40 years of watching college basketball.
Especially a team the caliber of Murray State. Like this is not just like some middling like team that fell apart. I mean, this is a very, very good team out
They
of
were
a
8-0 to
strong
start Missouri Valley play.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But listen, BP, I'm going to shout you out here because I know coming into last weekend you were having a tremendous February, so
Yes.
it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong about that? I feel like you were all over the league.
Yeah, no, I'm still not. I'm between NBA and college, still number one in February at WagerTalk, 22-8 with all basketball. I'd won 11 straight. I opened the month with 11-0 with college basketball sides, which is great. So let's get back on it. It's a. I know it's a small card today. Another thing that I was joking. It was funny when you asked me to jump on the show today. I said I'm going to warn you. The big game today, I have a shocking lack of conviction on. Houston and Iowa State. I don't know if that's where we want to open or not, but
let's open just because I guess I teased it with all the Duke talk. Let's go.
I have more talk. I have stronger conviction on that. I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, I have strong conviction on just talking about that game. I want to start by saying this, Brian.
Okay.
Central New York here, we still want to burn it down. Just because we won a couple games, like the Syracuse fans and the fan base here, we still want to burn it to the ground. Yeah.
Just to clarify, the basketball program or the whole city? You want to
well, if with the way you're having a similar winter with the way winter has gone,
sure,
maybe the whole city, but certainly the basketball program. They have won 2 straight, but here's the problem, and this will be our segue into Syracuse Duke from a betting standpoint tonight. Syracuse basketball fans judge everything based on the good days, the past, national championships with Jerry McNamara, Carmelo Anthony, even 10 years ago, kind of like making the run to the Final Four. Syracuse expects to go into a big Monday game with a chance, right? Like Houston might never be favored at Cameron on a Monday night. And, I don't think anyone would expect a scenario where Duke's not a home favorite to Syracuse on a Monday night. But we expect, I'm saying the Syracuse fan base expects to go into a game like this and at least have a shot. Similar to earlier this year, Syracuse goes down to North Carolina on Big Monday. No one thought they had a chance to win that game. And I would say this is even worse. This spread opened 20.5, Brian Power. So my question to you is, Cuse isn't winning here. I'll tell you that much. But do they have a chance to hang within that 20.5 number?
Well, if you're a Syracuse fan or just following the team, you know that the Orange are on a 5-0 against the spread run coming into this game. But let's investigate that 5-0 against the spread run, shall we, Adam Trigger? Okay, they upset SMU over the weekend. That was a 1-point win. The game before that was against Cal, the double overtime game. That was an absolute miracle. They cover against Virginia by 0.5 point. They cover against North Carolina by 0.5 point. Let's stop right there. North Carolina, you mentioned Syracuse was a big dog going to that game. It was on Big Monday. I remember, I was out of town. Where was I? I was in Florida watching that game with my father-in-law. And I joked that maybe it was a buy low spot on Syracuse, and he was making fun of me because at the time, Syracuse was down by 30 points in that game, remember, Trick? And then they came on. I joked, it was an absolute Jim Morrison backdoor man special that they pulled off. I mean, North Carolina just stopped playing when they were up 30. They were just like, this game's over. We don't care. We who cares? We don't. If you bet us, tough, whatever. So Syracuse did not deserve to cover that game. My concern with betting the Duke side here, Trig, and you are probably the last person on earth that needs reminded of this, maybe outside of John Shire. They're coming off the big win over Clemson over the weekend, and they looked fantastic. I saw you tweeted pretty early in the game, if I remember correctly, that you're like, Duke's running away with this thing. I mean, they just came out, absolutely looked like the better team, and they were the better team for all 40 minutes. Syracuse hit a season high 11 threes last game. It's not that speaks volumes about the answer. When 11 is your season high. Right? Do I have that correctly? It was 11. Was the season high? When that's your season high, that means you're not a good 3-point shooting team. So what did I do, Trig, breaking this game down? I immediately said, what's Syracuse's team total in this game? Because I would rather bet that number under than lay it with Duke. I think you're of the same ilk where this is not a number you're interested in laying, even though Duke is going to win the game. 61.5 is Syracuse's team total. That's low. But then look, guys, at what Duke has been doing at the defensive end. They held Clemson to 54, Pitt to 54. They've held 7 of their last 9 opponents under 60 points, and a lot of those teams are better than Syracuse. So if you forced me to make a play on this game, I think it's Syracuse team total under 61.5.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength, because I look at this and say, try to get creative and find a way to play Duke. And I think that's what you're basically doing too. You're saying, yes, okay, well, I'll fade Syracuse scoring. Yeah, listen, Syracuse, they've shot the ball better of late, but Cal's not a good defensive team, right? No. There was 100, that was a 107 to 100 game. Syracuse, that's actually deceiving. Their 3-point percentage for the season's now up to 33.3%, and it was worse than that. And I have a feeling it's more based on who they've played lately than it is they've just become a better 3-point shooting team. We know this team can't score from the foul line, one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. So here's the interesting thing to me about just this matchup. And this is something I talked about ahead of the SMU game this weekend. Syracuse, which we know here and is become common knowledge, is a very poorly coached team. That's part of the reason it needs to be burnt to the ground. Poorly coached team, and that's why Syracuse shows up on Big Monday and has no chance against the better teams in the ACC, because it's just not a good all around basketball team. Now, they've got some talent. They've got, there was a point in time this year I was at the Dome. They beat Tennessee. That's a good basketball team. 8-point dog. Syracuse beats Tennessee. They hung around with Houston. They do have some defensive talent. They can defend. William Kyle, tremendous paint presence there. Well, I would say one of the better ones in the league at sort of what he does. Now, he's a liability scoring the ball, and they need him on the floor, so that probably helps your under. But here's the problem for Cuse here is, even with the talent they do have, they don't have talent comparable to Duke, right? And if Duke wants to, they can win this game by 30 plus if they want to. They were on the way to doing that on Saturday, and they started playing with their food, right? They started kind of, it was 17-18 the majority of the second half. And I think Clemson came in, and depending on what number you got, numbers matter, folks, right? The Duke minus 12.5 crowd was fine. The Duke minus 13.5 crowd, no bueno. Clemson gets in at the end for the cover. So for me, it's got to be a way to play Duke here. I would look for, does Syracuse come out and just scratch tooth and nail for the first 10 minutes and keep it a 4-point game? If so, I would want to in-game Duke. Do I maybe just take Duke in the first half and hope for something like the North Carolina game where Cuse is just overmatched right from the start? Here's the thing. If you do that, and maybe you play a half unit on Duke in that scenario, then you can always go bigger in the second half if it doesn't work out, and then you'll have a better number relative to the game number. I actually make the spread 20.7 here, BP. Oh. So I'm on market, but I'm actually a little higher. I think Cuse has taken a little money to this point.
They have.
I think it's going to be Duke by 20. I'm just going to call it Duke by 20. If you can get 19.5 or better, I think you can lay it with Duke. I don't think you're going to have the lack of focus that you had the last sort of 5 minutes of the Clemson game.
Well, yeah, the only thing is that I always get nervous about. If they're up in that 20 range, straight. The Clemson, they totally stole that cover. So, I guess it could happen again. I don't know. I think if Duke does cover, it's because Syracuse stays under rather than Duke scores 90. Like if Duke covers this number, I don't think it's because they score 90 plus. I guess they're capable of doing that, but it's more likely that they just hold Syracuse, that Syracuse is pathetic at the offensive end, scores 58. Duke covering, it's 80 to 58, right? Something in that nature.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing we'll say before we go on is it's very possible spot-wise that happens. They just play double overtime with Cal, and they just had a tooth and nail barn burner with SMU on Saturday. Now they have to turn around and travel to Cameron. You could get your flat spot for Syracuse here. I definitely think that's possible.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I meant to say that after you started that when you see guys, you just have to click on the game and you'll find out. But if you're just looking at the scores, to be aware that Syracuse Cal game was a double overtime game. So the fact Syracuse scored all those points is highly, highly misleading.
Double OT with like no power at the Dome. Like all the scoreboards failed. They're basically playing in the dark over there.
That happened to Cleveland State recently. And then Cleveland State had its best offensive game of the year at a different gym.
Yeah, we could do the rest of the show on why Cleveland State should move back to campus, but we just don't have time for that today. We'll have to save that. We'll have to save that for a different show. What we do have time for. And Garth, I see you there. Garth is putting out his first 5% personal play of the year, which I absolutely love. We'll go to that, but we've got to do. I sort of hijacked the feature game segment just to like tell people I went to Cameron Indoor over the weekend. So we got to do the actual. Move. Yeah, that was that's fortunately this show gets clipped so they don't, no one will know when they clip the Kansas Iowa State breakdown, or I'm sorry, Houston Iowa State breakdown. The reason I had Kansas Iowa State on the brain is we just saw that game on Saturday, Brian Power. Iowa State sort of flexed in a spot that was good for Iowa State to do so. Kansas had come in. So it's almost like you can make the parallel here. Kansas had come in off a couple of really tough games, getting to tip off, not sure if Darren Peterson's going to play or not, then sort of banding together to beat the number one team in the country and their perfect season. And suddenly they ran out of gas at Iowa State over the weekend. Yes. So I feel like, you take that with a grain of salt. Iowa State's in a similar spot here where they now have to turn around after they had their big Hilton Magic Ames moment over the weekend. They're still at home, but they've got a top 5 team coming to town. So big game tonight, Houston, Iowa State. You and I both were kind of like, man, what do we do with this game? So I guess let's talk about it and find an angle.
Sure. And it's a quick turnaround too. I mean, you talk about the Kansas turnaround they faced after beating Arizona. At least that was they beat Arizona on Monday. The Iowa State game's not until Saturday. You theoretically have some time to get over, the ecstasy of that victory, beating Arizona, handing them their first loss of the season. Here, Iowa State, you're talking about it's a basically just 48-hour turnaround. You're playing another top 10 team in the country. I think the fact the game's in Ames is huge for Iowa State. Not only are they undefeated there this year, they're 47-2 the last 49 home games. Points you would expect to be at a premium. I will say this: Houston, number one in the country in scoring defense. They do give up a lot more away from home. They're by far and away number one scoring defense at home. I think they only give up 54 points per game when they're the home team. Away from home, that number does jump to 68. Now, it's not a big sample size. Correct me if I'm wrong, Trig. Houston has just not played a lot of true roadies this year at all. Now, they had an easy one on paper Saturday, as they put the final nail in the coffin of one Jerome Tang in Kansas State. So that was kind of an ideal setup. And it seemed like perhaps they were looking ahead to this game a little bit, Trig, because they didn't have a great start, Houston. And they were lucky that Kansas State happened to just be, a lot worse. So I don't know. I'm interested where you say, like, my thought is, and Zeno laughed at me when I said this on the morning wager, is the loser of this game is staying under its team total. And he said that's the sort of analysis everyone is paying good money to tune in for. But that's what I think. I think, whoever wins this game, it's going to be because of a superior effort on the defensive end. I do not see this like being a 75-72 game.
It's funny you bring up Kansas State. I was chatting with CT last night, and we were talking about that, just like Kansas State and the Tang, and I was just like, you know what, they should just let Kelly coach the rest of the year. And we both started dying. He's like, I just spit we were both laughing because it's just like let her get on the sideline and whip them into shape. It's just a different personality right there. But digress.
Hey, I mean, I don't need to tell you, there's no 3 scarier words to show up on your computer screen than KIV is typing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, right. That is very true. As far as this game is concerned, so you talk about Kansas State, Houston. I think Kansas State actually kind of played hard in that game, at least of what I watched of it. I don't know that Houston, maybe there was an element of Houston going through the motions a little bit, kind of knowing they have this game on deck. But I'm with you, BP. I'm far more interested in the total here. I feel like Vino today. I'm far more interested in the total. He's totals guy for the show. I'll be the totals guy for the show today. Where's the pace going to come from that gets this one over 136, right? Because you've got two teams. Houston is so not only is Houston a bottom 10 pace team in the country, but they're also it's reminiscent of Virginia back. Our buddy
Yes.
Aaron Kidd would tell you the days of, and not that Virginia basketball isn't in a great place right now. They are, but you go back to those Tony Bennett Virginia teams that were winning national titles or in the mix, and you would see a team that was in the top 10 of the country, but played a bottom 10 pace. What does that mean? Well, it means they probably are pretty good at dictating terms, right? Like if you are a top 10 team nationally, an elite team like Houston is, and you play a tempo that KenPom ranks 351st, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to dictate how a game goes against most teams in the league. Now, on the other hand, you could say, well, Iowa State, they're a top 5 team. Yeah, this is a battle of top 5 teams. But Iowa State is still around 200th nationally in tempo. I think Iowa State is fine playing slower. We've seen them do it at times this year. And I almost think that if you're Iowa State and you're even a little bit gassed from the Kansas game, probably makes sense to slow it down a little bit. So yeah, I kind of like the under here because two teams that are very good defensively as well in a game that I don't think you're going to get a ton of pace. I think this one stays under.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be a tough night. Whoever does lose this game, it's going to be a tough night at the offensive end for them. How about a first half total of 66.5? That to me is too like I think if you like the under in this game, you probably do need that first half under him. But God, is that a low number? 66.5.
I want to make one comparison here because I think this is a little bit relevant. So I think if you were to argue the other side, you could be like, well, people kind of had that handicap when Houston played Texas Tech a couple weeks ago and the game was 90-86.
Yeah.
For me though, Texas Tech is still, I still think they're not quite as put together as Iowa State, and they're a little bit more open to like the free for all. Grant McCasland does not have his best defensive team there this year, right? Like that's so. What I would say to that is Iowa State's elite defensively, and when you have a team that hovers around 200 in pace, KenPom, and they're playing a team with Houston that is notorious for dictating pace, this is one where I think it's likely to slow down. I don't think you're going to have the 90-86 final like you did in Houston, Texas Tech.
No, and 5 straight unders for Houston as well. Now, they were all, except one, a higher total than this. But, 3 of the 5 would have stayed under this number. Then Iowa State has obviously gone under in 3 straight games as well. And their last 2 games would have stayed under this number as well. So it's always important, when you're doing totals trends, I think it's obviously very important to, do some comparative line analysis.
Look at us. We said, oh, it's going to be tough to talk the big games today. We're not sure if we have opinions, and we came on and I feel like we landed on kind of 2 relatively
consensus. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at them the same way.
For sure. And again, I think there's a number of even this game, similar to Syracuse Duke, there's different ways you can go about it. But I think we have the same idea when we're looking at both games. And I kind of think it's the right way to look at both games. So we'll see how those go. All right, let's head to the chat. Garth, first of all, thank you for the donation to the show. Much appreciated. Garth says his first 5% personal play of the season. Old Dominion team total over 70.5. He says 8-0 at home in conference play. Said went under 3 times on the road, but they put up 69, 70, and 64 in those games. This is not only is this a 5% personal play for Garth, it is an early tip today. I believe, Brian Power, we have some teams making up games from the terrible weather. I don't know if this is one of them, but I do know that there's a couple of other teams. So make sure you got your eye on that. Because there's a couple of other teams. Yeah, a couple teams that are playing makeup games today, and they could be in quirky scheduling spots. And we'll talk about them if they come up on the show. This one in particular, I could not remember if this was a makeup or not, but it is a 5 p.m. tip. Old Dominion at home, where they've been better this year, against Louisiana. So are you with Garth on that team total? Do you have an opinion on the side? Anything for you on Louisiana Old Dominion this afternoon?
I mean, I would fade Louisiana. Find a way to fade Louisiana. That's the way of doing it. The only thing is, I think, Louisiana for the year, you look at their offensive numbers, they're bad, real. And so I don't know. I mean, their team got bumped up a little.
Yeah, while you're looking at that,
I was going to say, looking at how Louisiana's been better of late. I'm using the air quotes there. You would think that it's the offense that's more likely to fade. So I was just bringing up their team total, which sits at 65.5 right now. I would maybe look at that under, but yeah, I mean, if you like Old Dominion, I mean, Old Dominion, it's a correlated bet, right? Obviously, if you like Old Dominion, they probably do need to get to 71. So
yeah, and I was trying to pull up Louisiana's, pretty much outside the top 300 nationally, and in a lot of KenPom's got them 328 in offensive efficiency. They do not. So the one thing that'll, I guess, potentially hurt you here, and this goes back to who can dictate the game, right? Like Louisiana plays a pace that's as slow as glacial pace. That's a good word, BP. That's a good word. It's a glacial pace. There's only 3 teams in the country playing a slower adjusted tempo than Louisiana this year. But Old Dominion plays much faster than that. And this is kind of the what I was talking about with Houston, Iowa State. A lot of times the better team and then the home team, especially if the better team is at home, is going to be able to sort of impose. I was
dictate pace.
I was an English major for a little while at Siena. Then I realized you had to read a lot, and I didn't want to I like to write. I didn't want to read. So I switched the major. But the word I was looking for is impose their will. I think Old Dominion probably does that here. How about this, BP? Old Dominion's one of the unluckiest teams in the country per KenPom.
Oh, that always gets me excited.
I know it does. 345th in luck. Yeah. And you know what's funny? I'm just going back to my preseason rankings here.
I would just take Old. I'll be honest, we're talking ourselves. I would just probably take Old Dominion here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And just so everyone knows, BP and I did not talk before the show. Actually, we didn't know he was going to be on the show until about 20 minutes before the show. But we're seeing the board very similar here.
It's very cathartic.
I went back to my Sunbelt preseason rankings. That's what I was trying to queue up over here as on my other screen. And I was much higher than the market coming into the year on Old Dominion. Now, Old Dominion has not had a very good season by most accounts, right? They are second to last in Sunbelt play, 5-9. The only team with a worse Sunbelt record is Louisiana Monroe. But again, how much of that is some bad luck? They've had, I don't know exactly what goes into that luck metric, but I think it's notable that you're so I'm going to do some, here's the way I'm looking at this. You're a bottom 20 luck team on KenPom.
Mm-hmm.
Trig had you pretty high in his Sunbelt rankings for whatever that's worth. Now, you can be like, well, that's trash, whatever. But I'm just saying, I had them ranked pretty high coming into the year this year. I was almost always showing some value on the Old Dominion side in a lot of games, at least through the first couple months of the season. They've won 2 of 3, and one of those wins, your Ohio Bobcats. You got to take that with a grain of salt because, of course,
they're not that good this year.
Yeah, they really aren't. And that's a Sunbelt MAC. Some of those games,
other than Miami, I knew the entire MAC was going to punt that weekend, and they did. Other than Miami, 12 of the 13 teams lost.
Well, and the way that challenge works, all the MAC teams were on the road. I think it was Sunbelt at MAC the first time. MAC at Sunbelt. So you're not going to put a ton of stock into a road game when you're in the middle of your conference season. It's just unless of course you're Miami of Ohio where you're trying to keep a perfect season.
Yes.
So that's a really good point. But I'll look at the last 2 games for Old Dominion. Want to talk about luck? They were extremely unlucky to lose to Marshall last week. That was they had a huge lead in that game. Marshall came back and stole it at the end. So there's an unlucky one. Now, over the weekend, they go out and beat Georgia State by 33, or 23. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I wasn't. Brian was a math major. I wasn't a math major.
Okay. Yeah.
Even though you're supposed to be good at math. Thankfully, I've got spreadsheets and algorithms that calculate themselves.
We have things to do the math for us. Yes.
Yeah. But 23-point win over the weekend against Georgia State. So that's encouraging. They're still at home. This is, as we talk about this, I'm starting to like Old Dominion more and more. I think it agrees with what Garth is looking at with the team total over. But for me personally, I would just lay it with the Monarchs. Like, that's the way I would play this one. I'd lay it with the Monarchs. I like the fact that they just came off of a blowout win over the weekend, and they've got some good, they were able to bounce back from a crushing loss to Marshall. We know they've been unlucky this season, and they've bounced back with a win. And just to hammer the point home for Garth, if Old Dominion controls this game, it's going to be faster than Louisiana wants to play. That is not good for Louisiana. They don't rebound well. They'll likely turn the ball over. You'll probably get some open court, live ball turnovers. I think they like to call it, BP.
Yes.
And so I think you're getting your points, and I think you're going to get an Old Dominion cover here.
I'm looking at the odds screen right now. Right now, at one of the more popular books, you can get -5.5, -105 right now on ODU. Yeah. So I mean, you're getting a better price than obviously at the open. This open 6.5. So 6 is 2 possessions.
Where's Vino? Vino will be. I think he'll be back tomorrow. Honestly, he probably could have done the show today. I think he was. I think he had a knee operation. He had something with his knee. So we lost Richie Saunders and Vino to knee injuries this weekend.
Did they run into each other? I hope they didn't. Did they bang knees?
But unlike BYU, Vino's season is still alive and well. BYU season might be over after Saunders because they had no depth anyway. That is a crushing blow to a team that was sort of looking up against it already, and that was a tough blow for the BYU Cougars to lose Richie Saunders over the weekend. We did not lose Vino. He has the morning off. BP has made his return to the show, which they're, like I said, the people have been asking about you, so we had to get you back in the mix. And well, I'm sure Rob will be back probably as soon as tomorrow. So for other we talked about the big games at the top of the show. I saw a couple of people asking. So as always, WagerTalk YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Check out the replay. This is now, if I have to pretty much say this every show this week. If you're looking for the stream, I don't think X is going to let us. I don't think they let streaming anymore happen automatically on their platform. So if you want to watch the show live, it's always on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. You can find it on my Twitter because I'm tweeting the YouTube stream, but someone was like, I can't see it on X. I can't find it on X. I'm going to just continue to say, just make sure you've got YouTube pulled up. We're live on YouTube. That's where we see the majority of the comments anyway, as they come from YouTube. So just a PSA right there. Yeah.
I don't have to worry about live. They don't. I got to deal with Zeno every day, so they don't let him go live. I'll tell you that much right there. That's neither here nor there. They're not ready to give that live feature to our program. So there you have it. We still got to pick something, right? A best bet.
We do. Yeah, we're still doing.
We're still doing. Change that on me.
No, we're still doing a show parlay. We'll still, you and I will at least. So now what we do, BP, is we either do a 2 or a 3-teamer, meaning we'll either do a 2-teamer, but if we've got one that we both really like, we'll YOLO it, as the kids. I don't know. I don't think the kids say that anymore.
I don't think they do either.
Kids of 10 years
I
ago.
say it, but I'm not a kid. Yeah, 45 years old.
But so either a 2 or 3-teamer. If you have one that you want to throw out, by any means, go on and do it.
Out.
All right, let's go. What do you got?
Marshall team total over. South Alabama is if that's not a team you pay attention to, they're a crazy team in the sense that they allow an insane percentage of attempts from 3 relative to the total number of field goal attempts allowed. 65% of opposing team shots come from behind the arc. That is more than 10% higher than the number 2 team. It's crazy. Now, this line cratered a little bit this morning on Marshall. Why? Because the big man Van Coleman is out. It stood next to this individual, very large. He's not
I
playing.
couldn't get my phone out quick enough. I think I actually may have a picture of you standing next to him.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a tall guy and he dwarfed me. It was crazy. But he's out. But that's okay with the Marshall team total. Marshall is as you know, Trig, is a very good 3-point shooting team at home in Huntington. It's been a while since I've been in Huntington, West Virginia. I went there for Randy Moss's last home game, believe it or not, when they played Ohio University. That's I think last time I was that was a while ago.
That's incredible. Was that Chad Pennington as well? Was he the quarterback?
Yes, Chad Pennington was the quarterback.
Amazing.
Yes, in that game. Yes. Randy Moss,
right
he set the touchdown record, the NCAA touchdown record in that game, and then threw the ball out of the stadium. It landed in McDonald's parking lot. It was incredible. Anyway, I think Marshall's not going to have much like Randy Moss that day against the suspect Ohio University secondary. Marshall's basketball team will not have problem scoring here with Van Komen out instead of laying it. Let's just bet them to go over their team total. They shoot over 40% from three against an opponent that's going to let you take a lot of threes. So Marshall over team total. And let me get that because I think it's been moving. I gave it it is now it's 76.5 still.
Listen, that makes all the sense in the world. And all my handicap's going to do is support your thought here. So we continue to see it similar, but here's the thing. Marshall, so Matthew Van Komen came from Elon, right? Like this is his first year on Marshall. Corny Jackson really had to sort of revamp the team to accommodate him. So like if you go back to last year, Marshall played a lot faster, right? They were a little bit they were smaller, quicker, faster. This year, because Van Komen was so good at Elon as the anchor of that zone, Marshall started to play more zone, and they started to play in a manner that made it because they basically were like, well, we acquired this 7-4 big. We should be playing in a way that, like, you know, makes him comfortable, right? Like we don't want to have this game ripping up and down the court where our 7'4" big is now trailing the play because he can't run with the quick 6'1", 6'2" guards that like to get up and down the floor. So in theory, now that Matthew Van Komen's been out, and now that it's been a couple games, I think you should get a pretty big pace bump from Marshall. I think they're going to start reverting back toward the way they played last year, which was faster. Now, they're still like, I don't know that that's like, you know, any sort of crazy news to anyone. They're still 91st in adjusted tempo. So it's like,
and that's with the big, that's what I'm saying. But
right.
If they speed the pace up, that means they're going real fast.
Yeah. So let me, that's exactly right. So again, my gut would say that they only get faster. Like as long as Van Komen is out, they are only going to get faster on the pace. And if that's the case, you got to like your chances at a team total, because we've been talking about South Alabama since they opened the season with Toledo, because you and I watched that game and we went to the Toledo game like the next game after. And it was just like, oh, this team, this is Richie Riley. He's going to play this zone hell or high water, BP. He's not getting out of that zone. So like if Marshall can figure out the zone, they are going to have a lot of good looks from three in this game. So I'm with you. Team total over makes complete sense.
All right.
I'll go to one here. There's a lot of chatter in the chat about Colgate Boston U, and far be it for me to deprive the chat of some national televised Patriot League action as we get into conference play. We are in. Go ahead, VP.
No, I was going to say I'm glad we are talking about this because Zeno and I went back because Zeno's a Patriot League guy.
He is a Patriot League guy. He used to be a MAC guy.
Yeah,
and then now he was at Loyola. He was a MAC guy, and they moved to the Patriot League. Yes.
I think this is a horrible spot for Colgate coming off the loss to Navy, where you laid it all on the line and then you lose in overtime. But he was very adamant that how bad Boston U is defensively.
Okay, can I be the?
So he thinks that's going to be up. I don't know, spot wise, there is no way I want to play Colgate.
I'm going to be the mediator of this discussion between you and Zeno, because I think you both have good points here, and so we'll try to figure this one out, because I've really looked at this one hard as a guy that was on the wrong side of Colgate Navy That was I didn't I
Zeno
managed
had
to get
Colgate
out,
too.
and that was a tough beat, right? Like they lose in overtime. There was at the end of regulation, they really probably, if they make their free throws, they probably win the game.
Yeah.
But BP, you cannot, the spot matters here, right? Because here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about this game. The Patriot League makes concessions to play on national TV on Monday nights. This is typically a Wednesday, Saturday league, right? Usually Patriot League plays Wednesday, Saturday, except when they get the national TV spot. What does that mean? It means that for two teams to play on national television, 6 p.m., CBS Sports Network, they're going to have a quick turnaround. So I am very much with you in the respect that this is a really tough, quick turnaround for Colgate, because you just had, that was Colgate's season on the line. When I say their season on the line, they needed to win that game to have a chance to win the Patriot League regular season, which is a big deal. It's arguably a bigger deal than it is in other leagues, because all these teams, this is still a campus site tournament. So the one seed in the Patriot League is going to get to host any game that they play in the conference tournament. So it was a huge game for Colgate. They were right there. They end up going to overtime and losing, and now they got to hit the road and go play Boston University, who here's where I'll sort of support Zeno's theory a little bit. They've been decimated by injury this year, completely decimated by injury. They're not the team, like coming into this season. I thought this league was going to be Colgate, Boston University, Navy, and then everyone else. Those three teams would have been far and away the best teams in this league. Now, BU has not been in that conversation because BU does not have the team that they were supposed to have at the beginning of the year. They've been just dusted by injury. Maybe more so than any other team in the Patriot League this year. However, they've won 4 straight, and it's about time. This is where this handicap becomes interesting, because it's time where we have to start judging BU for the team that's on the court and not like what they would have been had everyone been healthy. And so for months they struggled, but it's like they're starting to figure it out. They're starting to put it together a little bit. 4 straight wins. They blow out Bucknell over the weekend. And Brian Power, that game was at Case Gym as well, which means BU haven't had to go anywhere. They're chilling.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a nationally televised home. I wonder, the last time I can remember them playing at home on national TV on a Monday, the swim team was there and nothing but their underwear trunks. Yeah. Right at half court, in the camera screen. So my sister went to BU. So just a theme. She went to BU for undergrad. She actually played volleyball there. So she was friends with some of the athletes. That was during the John Holland days. Pat Chambers, the head coach. Wow. So that's a really fun little building, Case Gym. It's in like the second floor of their student rec center. Probably a decent atmosphere tonight. It's weird. BU Hoops tends to start to show up like mid-February. So they'll have no one there. And then it's as it gets to
they had the Patriots for all those years. That's why. That's what they're paying.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. This is it's tough for me to go against Colgate, having been on Colgate over the weekend. I don't want to be that guy where I'm just now I lose.
Now you jump out. Yeah. If you like them that much.
I think I'm with you. I think I'd rather have the points in BU here with them staying at home, whereas Colgate has this crushing defeat and now they have to hit the road on a quick turnaround. Okay. Yeah, I think I'd roll with the Terriers plus the points. That's a tricky game though. That's a very tricky game. All right, we still have 15 minutes left. I will be locking a play in. I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna make my leg of the parlay. This is a makeup. So let's talk about this one quick, because I do have opinions here. It is the third time that Abilene Christian and Tarleton have played. I believe this game was the one that got they had an ice storm in Texas. They tried to play this game 2 different times and canceled it both times. And so the interesting dynamic here is the WAC this season, Brian Power. Everyone in the
WAC is getting out of hand, man.
Well, everyone in the WAC is playing 3 times. So that is the norm for WAC conference basketball this year. Everyone is playing 3 times. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about this game is these two teams played 2 days ago. in Abilene. So this is a literal home and home.
Yeah.
Saturday in Abilene, Tarleton, I was at a game while this game was going on, but it's one, I follow the Tarleton program closely. I've made some friends down there. Tarleton was winning the game until they weren't. Like, it was almost like your Murray State Belmont type, not quite as drastic as that last night, but Tarleton was winning for like a long stretch. And I think I tuned out for a second. By the time I tuned back in, they were down by double digits very quickly. I'm trying to scroll through Saturday's games to get a final.
73 to 59. They lost.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so Abilene Christian outscored them 47-27 in the second half.
Yeah, and that's saying something, because Abilene Christian does not score. Like, they're not a team that really scores the basketball. So for them to come out, drop 47 in the second half, and blow that game open is, that's not something they typically do. Abilene, that's the thing. They're not a bad team this year, Brian, but they're gonna grind out these defensive low scoring games. They're not a team that typically comes out and drops 47 in a half against a team that's comparable, right? Like, Abilene and Tarleton, I think most power rankings have them pretty close, pretty even. And so for them to do that was shocking, because they turned that game on its head. My concern for Tarleton is the season has just kind of caught up with them. Sure. They've had injuries. They don't have Dior Johnson hasn't played. Freddie Hicks is back, but he's also been coming off of injury. So you're not really getting like the full Freddie Hicks experience. Of course, he played 21 minutes off the bench over the weekend, only scored 5 points. It feels like things are going south for this Tarleton team. And also, they just don't have a ton of scoring without Dior Johnson on the floor, who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, BP, is still the leading scorer in the country in terms of points per game. If he's not one, he's very close to being the leading scorer in the country. He's averaging like something like 24 or 25 points per game. Now you've got the quick turnaround. It is at Tarleton. So I suppose but I have no idea what the deal is with Dior, whether he's going to play, whether he's not. It feels like if this is the same personnel that showed up on Saturday, I think I'd have a tough time taking Tarleton here. If Dior Johnson is back, that changes my opinion completely. I'd be all over them in this spot, because he's worth he's going to put up 20 for you. But Brian, I will say this, and maybe you can talk to me about the total or how you're seeing the side. I don't know that I really want Abilene either, because they don't score. So what do we do in this spot?
That would be, first of all, Johnson, that'd be number 2 in the country in scoring. That if he qualified, he's off the qualifiers board now, officially. Look, you see this in the NBA sometimes, where the teams will play back-to-back games. So oftentimes it's at the same place. They actually don't switch. I often like to go with the team that lost to get immediate revenge in those. You make a strong hit. The early market has moved towards Abilene Christian here. I don't know if I can get a cheap money line price on Tarleton. I actually might consider doing it with the revenge, because you look at how the game just played out, and it's a misleading second half. To me, that's a 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 30 outcome for Abilene, the way that second half played out. That's not going to happen again, especially now that they're on the road. So I would actually, I don't know. I actually would kind of maybe lean just on principle, less schematic stuff for me, Trig, just more on principle. It has I think the handicap has less to do with the specifics of these actual teams. And hey, I could get a cheap money line price on the team at home playing with immediate revenge. That is attractive to me, at least from a situational perspective, obviously.
Yeah, it's one of those two. And I guess the final thing I'll say about this, it's like, I wonder, especially for a team like Tarleton, the focus has to be like, we need to do everything in our power to try to get as healthy as possible for the WAC tournament, right? Because as of right now, it was already going to be a 7-team tournament. If Utah Valley doesn't pay their tab, it's only a 6-team tournament.
Yeah.
That is a major opportunity, even for a team that's having a tough conference season, to only have to play. If you're like either of these teams and Utah Valley doesn't pay the $1 million and they're not in the tournament, it's a 6-team tournament to get to the NCAA tournament, right? Like that's incredible. That is like the opportunity of a lifetime for teams that are maybe not having the best season. So still everything to play for. And I maybe, maybe I shouldn't be discounting Tarleton for like, they still have everything in front of them here. And they do have some depth and they do have some good players. So it is going to be very interesting to watch this game. I don't know. I don't know how to really process all of that. I think it could be, and listen, go back to Saturday, BP, the swings in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe you are. Maybe you've convinced me.
I just think conceptually, I think if you're really in the weeds with the two teams, you might have your doubt. I just think, just broadly conceptually speaking, the revenge. I mean, it's not. I mean, for me, you don't want to just limit your handicap to one factor, but I don't know. From that perspective, I would lean a little bit towards Tarleton. The only game on the main board we haven't talked about, Trig, if we could jump, because I actually want to get this in and get your response to it, because we talked about it on the morning wager, is Drexel Stony Brook. Zeno made a strong case for the over in this game. It is a very low total at 133.5. Now, these teams played, or you talk about rematches. I can guarantee you that Stony Brook is going to score more in this game than they did the first time against Drexel, because they scored 37 points in the first game against Drexel. I was just on the wrong end of a team scoring 61 points in 18 minutes last night. Stony Brook scored 37 points in 40 minutes the first time. So, Stony Brook's at home, obviously, this time. I think the Coastal is a very odd league this year. It's very wide open. I don't think there's a big North Carolina A&T and Northeastern obviously suck. Those two teams are very bad. But I think the rest of the league, like anyone can beat anyone on any given night.
Sure. I think, I would agree with that.
I think Wilmington's a pretty weak first place team, but I don't know. What do you think about that? I kind of, when he laid it out, he made a pretty compelling case for that Drexel Stony Brook over. It's such a low number.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a game I've actually had I had a nice win in the Coastal last night with Towson plus 1.5, somehow held on. I have been so Drexel. Yeah, I guess I'll talk about the side, but also I'll talk about the total first, and then I'm actually gonna. You know what? I was on the fence with what I was going to use for the parlay. I think I'm going to use this game, but let's talk about the total first. My only real problem, because I actually like this Drexel team. My issue with them coming into the year was they really didn't go to the portal at all. I didn't know if it was a resource thing or what it was, but they didn't go to the portal at all. And I felt like their team didn't have a ton of basketball talent. Why that was disappointing to me is I love Zach Spiker. He's a great coach. He had a run at Army for years as a really good coach. Like he is a fantastic basketball coach. And so I want to like his teams. I actually went to see Drexel play at Drexel earlier this year. And my whole thing is like, this is too bad because they're a pretty well put together team, but they just don't have a ton of offensive ability. They don't have a ton of offensive talent. Mm-hmm. Now, to Drexel's credit, they've improved in that regard, right? Like they've got it. Like this is a team, when I went and saw them, they played Howard. That was back in early December. And they lost on their home floor to a team that I think that anyone would agree, like a capable Drexel team should beat Howard at home. And they lost that game. And I said, man, it's just because this team just can't score. They just don't have, like, they play hard on defense. They're organized. Spiker's a great coach, but at some point it does come down to putting the ball through that orange cylinder, right? That is the game we are playing here. It's still, and that's what I felt like they had a hard time doing. You can go back to go back to that sort of same window of games, right? Losing to Charleston, 63 points. Losing to Wilmington, they only scored 53. They lose to Hofstra, fail to break 70 again. And then something's happened with them. I think it was, I really think it was more, they started to win a couple of close games, but this team looks more confident on the offensive end. They put up 83 against Northeastern. Recently 82 in a win over Elon. They're still winning low-scoring games, which is why I'm going to move toward the side of this breakdown. But I guess I can't. I don't really disagree with Zeno's look on the total. Okay. Last time out,
it's interesting. The total's the same. It's the same number as it was the first time. So I feel like obviously, it's the odds makers were unmoved and understand that was an outlier performance. That one of
right, and that was more of an outlier. Listen, that was more of an outlier performance. Probably more of an outlier performance for Stony Brook, scoring 37 points.
Yes,
but I wouldn't listen. Like, if this game is decided in the 60s, or someone's like, maybe, I'm not that surprised. For me, as I go back to, I just want to see, because I'm probably, I do think this is what I'm going to use for the parlay. It's again, I was close with the games I was going to use. I don't think Drexel should be like an underdog. I think maybe like by a point. Maybe you could make them -1 here, -1.5. I had one more thing I needed to add in to my calculation of this line, but I think when I finished my calculation for this one, which I just was happened to not do yet this morning, I'm going to be closer to like 1.82. I'm not going to be at 4. That's the point I'm trying to make. So even though I didn't play it at the open, because again, I go back, I've this wasn't one for me that like just jumped off the page as like something I had to lock in. And the reason for that is I do think Stony Brook is going to get a little bit of love for being at home. But from a number standpoint, I don't think Drexel should be a 4-point dog on the road here. Stony Brook, I haven't been to this building, but I do know it's great if they can fill it, but they haven't really. I don't even know that they're filling it for the Hofstra game these days, which is, of course, the Battle of Long Island, for those of you keeping track of your rivalries at home. So I just don't know that Drexel's the big draw. Maybe if Charleston or Wilmington come to town, people will show up. I'm going to go. This is going to be parlay leg for me. I'm going to go Drexel +4. It looks like I for the parlay, I'm going to put -120. There are 4s out there. So this open 3.5, it looks like it just is starting to touch 4 places. I'll probably monitor throughout the day. If I can get a widely available 4, this may make my client card. Ooh. But for the parlay, I'm going to go Drexel +4. So I just don't think they should be a dog here. And if they lose this game, I think it's going to be kind of a dog fight, if you will, be a close game, one that could be within a possession or 2. So I kind of like the idea of getting 2 possessions here in this game.
We talked about the Coastal being wide open. These are 2 teams that, I don't know. I think there's better teams than both these teams in the state. Like, they're lower that. Like, I think William and Mary and Towson are more live to make a run in that tournament than either of these 2 teams.
But one thing I really, this is sort of important to the handicap. Drexel is starting to gain confidence as a team that knows how to win games. They didn't have that earlier in the year, but they have strung together some wins, and they do it ugly, where I don't think they ever think they're out of a game. And that's because Zach Spiker is a tremendous coach. And this is a team. I think Drexel could sneak up on teams in this conference tourney. Every year in the CAA, we see some. Remember last year, I think it was Delaware. A couple of years ago, it was Stony Brook going all the way to the final and then eventually losing to UNC Wilmington. Don't sleep on the Drexel Dragons, Brian Power. I think they're better than people think.
Breathing fire.
All right, we have hit the end of the show. I'm going to put 120 juice on that. So the parlay of the day will be +250. Brian Power is going with Marshall team total over 76.5. I'm going to go with Drexel +4. BP, thank you so much for coming back to Full Court Press, filling in. Why don't you hit the folks with a quick promo, what you got going on the way out?
Yeah, guys, it was an unfortunate loss last night for sure, but we're still number 1, all basketball, NBA, and college for the month of February at WagerTalk.com. Very proud of that. 20-6, my last 26 basketball plays. 11-3 college basketball. I think there is something that we didn't talk about today because it's on the added board that I may very well get to as a client release. So check that out. You know where to find me, wt.buzz/BP. And by the way, I saw a lot of Serie A talk in the chat. I don't know if that was because I'm here or not, or if that normally goes on. People are just talking about soccer. Cagliari hosting Lecce. Lecce has not scored an away goal, guys, in 315 minutes of play. So that helps your handicap, all of you guys who liked Cagliari there.
Phenomenal stuff, BP. Always good to chat with you. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We'll be back one way or another, 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning for more Full Court Press. See you guys then.